So yesterday we have discussed about the power dissipation, and we have just briefed out about the junction capacitance. And in the junction capacitance, we are having two types: depletion capacitance and diffusion capacitance. As the name itself tells, junction capacitance. That means this capacitive behavior will be occurring across the junction. That is the junction which is formed between P and N layer. So we will just compare our PN junction with the normal capacitance. So let us take the PN junction. This PN junction is compared with the principle of capacitance, as you have already studied in 11th, 12th, or in your second PU. You know the principle of capacitance is explained by using the parallel plate capacitors, where two plates are placed opposite to each other, together like this, and one will be acting like positive plate and other one will be acting like negative plate. So the distance, the gap between this positive plate and the negative plate, that is being the dielectric medium. So as we already know, according to the principle of capacitance, when you are going to move these plates closer together, then accumulation of the charges over the plates increases. In the same way, if you are going to take away these plates from each other, that means you are just trying to move them away from each other. During that time, the capacitance or the amount of charge on the capacitor decreases, right? So I'll repeat it again. When the two plates are moved to closer together, then the capacitance increases, or the accumulation of the charges over the plates increases. In the same way, when you are moving away these plates from each other such that the dielectric medium is increased between those two, then the accumulation of the charges decreases. This principle of capacitance is just compared with the PN junction. See, P means, you know that majority charge carriers are holes and we consider it as positive layer. In the same way, N layer is considered to be the negative layer because it is having majority charge carriers as electrons. So just let us try to compare P layer with this positive plate, N layer with the negative plate, and this junction with the dielectric medium. So just look into this diagram and tell me, can we compare this together? Are they matching? Can we compare? See, we have a positive plate. Yes, we have positive plate. We have a negative. We are having a negative. So we are having a junction which is going to separate P and N. Here also we are having a dielectric medium which is going to separate P and N. So considering this, now in this our proposed junction capacitance, the junction is going to act as dielectric medium. Now just try to think, when do we observe this movement of plates closer together in P and N layers, and movement of plates away from each other in P and N layers? When you are going to consider this movement of plates with respect to P and N layer, because we are considering P as one plate, N as another plate. We are just considering it, assuming it. Can you tell me when this P and N layers are moving away, when they are moving closer together?
In
Sir,
reverse
in
bias.
P type,
Forward and reverse.
Yes,
in
tell me.
forward bias they will move closer, and in reverse bias they will move
Yes,
away.
yes, very good. See, when we are going to do forward bias, during that time, P and N layers are moving closer to each other. So that the accumulation of the charges increases, right? Because when P and N layers are closer, the junction is narrow. During that time, movement of charges increases. That means the forward current is increasing. In the same way, in reverse bias condition, the PN junction or the P and N layer are farther. So they are moving away from each other. So what happens? Accumulation of the charges decreases. When accumulation of charges decreases, automatically the current through the PN junction decreases. So this behavior of PN junction, since it is similar to the capacitance characteristics, so we tell even the PN junction is going to exhibit a capacitive behavior. So this kind of behavior is known as the junction capacitance. So considering this forward bias, reverse biasing, and the width of the junction, we are having two types. One is diffusion capacitance, and the other one is depletion capacitance. So when the diffusion capacitance we consider, as the name itself tells, diffuse. Diffuse means it is going to pass through, it is going to penetrate. When the charges get penetrated through the junction, whenever it is forward biased. Deplete. So as the name itself tells, depletion. So this happens when the diode is reverse biased. Diffusion capacitance is the capacitive behavior exhibited by the PN junction under forward bias condition. Depletion capacitance is the capacitive behavior exhibited by the PN junction under reverse bias condition. This diffusion capacitance is also known as the storage capacitance. Storage capacitance. In exam, if they can ask you, explain what is storage capacitance, and in the same way, depletion capacitance, we are having one more name. It has transition capacitance. These are the two names we are having: diffusion or storage capacitance, depletion or transition capacitance. These are the two behaviors that are exhibited by the diode. The same way, we know the capacitance and charge and voltage relationship. C is equal to dq by dV according to the equation Q is equal to CV. So by using this relationship, from this we understand that the rate of change of charges with respect to change in applied voltage will give you the capacitance. This is about the junction capacitance. After this, once we have understood the junction capacitance, now we'll try to write the AC equivalent circuit. As I had told, the only difference between AC and DC equivalent circuit is, in AC equivalent circuit, we are going to include capacitance, but in DC equivalent circuit, we will not include capacitance. Can I know why? Why?
Capacitor blocks DC.
Yes, very good. So capacitor is going to block DC and allow AC. It offers highest resistance for DC and lowest resistance for AC. So that's why it is not being considered in the DC DC equivalent circuit, but in AC equivalent circuit, we are going to consider. So as we had a battery, we had a resistor. To this battery and resistor, we are going to connect one capacitor parallel to it. So it is RD. What is RD? Why I have represented it as RD?
Dynamic resistance.
Dynamic resistance.
why we consider dynamic resistance here?
Because it's offering a resistance to an AC current.
Yes, very good. Since it is offering, since the supply is AC, we are going to consider dynamic resistance because the resistance offered to the flow of AC is dynamic resistance. Now capacitor is connected like this, and this is the AC equivalent circuit. If you want, you can represent an ideal diode also here, or if you don't mention that also, it is understood because under forward bias condition, anyhow it is going to act like short circuit. So we can just write battery and resistor, or if you want, you can also include ideal diode. So this is about the AC equivalent circuit. So after this, the next one is the reverse recovery time. The next topic, reverse recovery time. See, like human beings, where for any sudden changes, we need some time to set to the sudden changes, right? If there is any sudden, we are having a summer season, suddenly from the next day it starts heavily raining. We need some time to adjust. We'll feel some uncomfortability, right? After that, slowly we are going to tune up ourselves to the changing environment, or it is not only about the environment. For any situation, we need some time to get adjusted to it. In the same way, even the devices need some time to adjust to the change in the change in the supply, or change in the direction of current and all. So that time which is taken by the diode to get back to its actual uh, position is known as reverse recovery time. It needs some time to come back to the normal state. See, suppose if you are going to assume there is, in reverse bias condition, no current should flow, as we know already. Reverse bias condition, no current should flow. But when you are going to suddenly reverse bias a forward biased diode, I'm repeating again, forward biased diode is suddenly getting reverse biased. During that time, the diode will not suddenly get reverse biased. It needs some time to get into reverse bias condition, because all these times it was under forward bias condition. When you are going to reverse bias it suddenly, it needs some time to get back to the reverse bias condition, or tune itself to the reverse bias condition. That time is known as reverse recovery time. Let us see this reverse recovery time with the help of the graph. So we'll plot a waveform with respect to voltage and time. So this is the forward voltage. So we are having a constant forward voltage, and we are going to suddenly reverse bias this. We are going to suddenly reverse bias this, but as you are changing the voltage, since it was at the beginning it was positive, suddenly you are going to change it to negative. This has to be followed by the current. So whatever the changes you do with the voltage, the same thing should happen with respect to current also, because it is going to follow the flow of charges depends upon the voltage what you are going to apply. This is the reverse voltage which we are going to apply, and this is the waveform which I am going to plot for current versus time. So initially when voltage is positive under forward bias condition, the current is also positive and you will be having maximum current. See here, you are suddenly reverse biasing it. That means you are giving negative voltage at this particular time duration. You are just reversing the voltage. During that time, as you know, voltage is going to follow, sorry, the current is going to follow the voltage. The current should also become negative. And what is the amount of current we will be having in reverse bias condition? Is it equivalent to forward bias condition, or minimum, or maximum?
Minimum.
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 What you call that minimum current as?
Reverse saturation current.
Yes, good. So that minimum current is known as reverse saturation current. Okay. So now here the diode is forward biased, and suddenly we have reverse biased it. Because of the reverse bias condition, the direction of the current is also getting reversed. It is also going to the negative phase. So here it is, the positive, the current is positive, that is in conventional direction. Suddenly when you are going to reverse, the current will be reverse biased. But you can see that the amount of current it was having here, it is almost having the same amount of current in reverse bias condition also. So it is actually, according to our theoretical understanding, the current should be here. So the current should come like this, and it should be at this level. It should be here. But you can see that instead of being here, it is coming out till this level. After that, it is going to slowly decrease. Right? So if you can observe here, it is almost having same amount of current what it was having in the forward bias condition, but in the reverse direction. In reverse direction, it is having same amount of current. That means it is having same amount of charges which are flowing. Slowly, gradually, it starts decreasing with respect to time, and after certain time duration, it is going to reach the reverse saturation level. So what at this particular point or this particular time, the diode is going to reach its reverse saturation level. This is what actually is expected. So that expected level is being reached after some certain time duration. Let us see why it happens like this. When we consider a p-n junction, during that time, when we have forward biased this p-n junction, during that time, we know the holes exchanger places, or they'll start moving towards the n layer, and the electrons move like this, and there'll be easy flow of charges across the junction. So this is a junction where the charges are going to pass through them. When you are going to suddenly reverse bias this, during that time what happens, the charges were freely moving across the junction. It is just like we are having a junction, and the vehicles are moving easily, and some vehicles are coming like this, and there is suddenly a red signal. So during that time what happens, some of the vehicles gets stuck in the junction at the center itself, and they will try to move towards the either ends. They cannot come back. So obviously they'll move forward. That is what we have observed every day, right? Even though red signal is there, just before that red signal getting displayed there, or after just for few seconds of red signal also, the vehicles will be keep on moving, because they've already left the border. of that particular road. So obviously they cannot go back. So they have to move forward. So that's why they'll be moving forward and they're going to reach the road where they want to move. In the same way here, the charges are flowing through this, but when you are going to suddenly reverse bias, during that time, the charges which are stuck in the junction or which are already in the junction, they are going to still move because of the energy, whatever they have acquired already. So this amount of charges which are across this junction or which are already stuck in this junction, until these charges will be present, we'll be having the flow of current. Once this charges which are stuck in the junction or which are in the depletion region starts reducing, the current will also starts reducing. When initially, since the charges were allowed to move freely across the junction, obviously they were moving. Suddenly when you are reverse biasing, so the charges which are just in the junction, they still try to move because of the charge, because of the energy, whatever they have acquired already. Because of those charges, still some amount of current will be flowing. When this charges across the junction starts reducing, that means they are moving, already they are left the junction, then slowly the current is also going to decrease. As the charges decreases, the current will also decrease and they reach the reverse saturation level. The time taken to reach the reverse saturation level by the diode is known as reverse recovery time. So the reverse recovery time is the time required for the current to decrease to its reverse saturation level. I repeated, it is a time required for the current to decrease to the reverse saturation level. That time is known as reverse recovery time. So the total time is this much. We represent it by TRR. So reverse recovery time, which we are going to take. So now why does this happens? Here we are, according to the voltage, this is the ideal consideration where the positive voltage was there, suddenly we are giving reverse voltage and this will happen actually. But this can be analyzed based upon the time or delay which is that is happened. Because of that, the diode, the change in voltage of the diode, instead of suddenly getting changed like this, it slowly gets changed. Okay, it slowly gets changed. This time or this transition time, whatever we are having for changing from positive to the negative voltage, this is the voltage level and this is the time. It will not suddenly go like this. It will take some time to move from positive level to the negative level. That time is known as fall time. That time is known as fall time. Since this fall time is more, obviously this the amount of current which is flowing from for certain duration will also be more, and also based upon this fall time, the time taken by the diode to reach to its reverse saturation level will also increases. So always the fall time should be 10 times the reverse recovery time. So then only we can get the reverse bias condition at the earliest stage, and we are going to get the reverse saturation current immediately. So this is about the reverse recovery time. After this, the next part is on the applications of rectifier, applications of diodes. As we know, there are different types of applications: rectifiers, regulators, LEDs, all those things. We are going to discuss one by one. And in this, rectifiers is very, very important, because one derivation from rectifiers, there are three types of circuits. Actually, there are only two types of rectifier: half wave rectifier, full wave rectifier. In full wave rectifier, again we are having two types: full wave rectifier with center tap, and other one is bridge rectifier. So these three circuits are there, and three different types of list of derivations will be having. Among these three, one derivation is compulsory. 100% you'll get this question. Either explain the working of half wave rectifier and derive the expression for the DC current, its efficiency, like this they'll ask, or same question can be asked for full wave rectifier with center tap or bridge rectifier with center tap. So 100% you will get this question for 8 to 10 marks. Without this, none of the question paper, you can just look into the question papers. Without this question, the module 1's questions are not completed. So one derivation from rectifier and one problem from rectifier is almost 100% sure. So you can easily target for 10 marks in this particular subsection only. Before going on to the rectifier, let us look into some of the problems which we have come across. So there are some very simple problems. I'll not take such problems because you can just understand by looking into the problems. So let me take one example. So those who are having the textbook, it is in page number 18, example 2.3. So in this, they have given, draw the DC load line for the circuit. Draw the DC load line for the circuit. Diode characteristics is given below. So it is just a problem for understanding the concept. So we have taken a simple diode. Let me take, instead of 10 volt, I'll give 12 volt. And this has 120 ohm. This is the diode's forward voltage. And they have given the diode characteristics. Diode characteristics means they are giving the VI characteristics. So it is like this, 0.7. On looking to this VI characteristics, can you tell me what kind of diode they have considered in this circuit, whether it is germanium or silicon?
Silicon, sir.
Silicon, yes, because the forward drop is 0.7, so obviously it is silicon only. Now to this circuit, to draw the DC load line, yesterday we have discussed about the method to draw the DC load line. So what we do for DC load line is, we are going to apply the KVL to the circuit. Kirchhoff voltage law is applied to the circuit, and from the obtained equation, we are going to find 2 points, 1 point along y-axis and 1 point along x-axis. After that, we are going to join, and the point where this the curve VI characteristics curve and DC load line both are going to meet, that point is known as the operating point. So in this question, they have just asked the DC load line. So for DC load line, we will be applying the KVL, and yesterday I had told the entering point is always considered to be positive and leaving point is considered to be negative. Considering that, let us take, this is E, this is R, and this is VF, and the current which is flowing is IF. minus 2 plus E. First, let us write the equation, then we will substitute the values. Coming over here, to write the voltage drop across this resistance, we'll take IF into R. Coming to this, plus 2 minus, it is minus VF, that is equal to 0. After obtaining this equation, let us take it as equation 1, and we need to find out this voltage as well as this current. So this is nothing but VF only. So now substitute IF is equal to 0. In order to get this point, you can just look in the y-axis value is 0. So that's why we need to apply IF is equal to 0 in the above equation. When you substitute IF is equal to 0, during that time E will be equal to VF. That means your VF value will be 12 volt. In the same way, to get a point along y-axis, we are going to substitute VF is equal to 0, because in order to get this point along y-axis, the x-axis value is 0, right? The VF will be 0. So when VF is 0 in equation 1, we get, so the remaining terms are E minus IF into R, that is equal to 0. So this implies IF is equal to E by R. So this point is obtained by E by R. So let us now substitute E by R value. It is 12 volt and this is 120. So now, so what is the answer for this? So 10 milliamps.
0.1.
Sorry, okay, 120 ohm I've taken. Okay, 0.1 ampere. Okay, now we obtained this point. Now you join these two. The point where this curve and this point is going to meet, that point is known as Q point. This is what you need to do. Okay, if they are asking for DC load line, it is very small, simple one. Maybe it can be joined with any of the theory questions, because it is just for 2 marks or maximum of 4 marks. So in the same way, we are having the problem on the power dissipation, that is derating factors and all. So let us take the example 2.5 in page number 21. So a germanium diode with, let me take 800 milliwatt power dissipation at 26 degree has a derating factor (4 milliwatt per degree Celsius). Find maximum forward current at 26 degrees Celsius and 45 degrees Celsius. So yesterday I forgot to tell one equation for the power dissipation. It is P2 is equal to P1 at T1 minus delta T into derating factor. This is the formula. It is there in the theory part of power dissipation only. P1 at T1 means this is the power, initial power at temperature T1. So P2 is the new power dissipated when the temperature is going to change. So when the temperature was T1, this is the power which is dissipated. When the temperature changes to T2, then this is the power which is getting dissipated. They'll ask you to find the new power by giving the temperature of at the initial level and final level, and also the power at the initial level. So delta T, as you know, it is the change in temperature. We take T2 minus T1, and the derating factor, they'll be giving it in the question. Suppose if they are not giving it in the question, then you need to consider it to be 2.2 milliwatt per degree Celsius. So this is what you need to consider if they are not giving 2.2 milliwatt. If they are given, just consider what they have given. So here they have given it is 4 milliwatt per degree C, then you consider that only. Okay, now by using this formula, we can try to find the required things. The maximum forward current at 26 degrees Celsius and 45 degrees Celsius. So for the power, we are having V into I. So considering this, if you know the power, you can calculate the current also. And see, when you can observe here, we are having 26 degrees Celsius and 45 degrees Celsius. See, irrespective of the temperature, because the temperature is not having much variation, 26 degree and 45 degrees Celsius, it doesn't affect the diode to a larger extent. So the power, so the maximum current will be for 45 degree only, because unless you are going to cross some 50 degree or 60 degree, the diode's behavior will not change. When you cross 50 degree or 60 degree, then only the diode characteristics will be keep on changing. There might be sudden rise of current. And but one more thing, when temperature increases, heat is going to dissipate based upon the power, right? Because when temperature is increasing, the electrons gets excited. They gets excited and they starts moving. So obviously, the maximum current will be possible at P2 only, not at the P1. I'll repeat it again. At maximum temperature, maximum current is possible. Heat dissipation will be there anyhow, but maximum current flows at maximum temperature only, because the charges gets excited very early because of the increase in the temperature. So if you find P2, we can find I. This is our forward voltage drop, which is going to be fixed for a given diode. So it is, since it is germanium, it will be 0.3 volt. So let us now find out P2. Yeah, now substitute in the above equation and let me know what is the value. 600 milliwatt minus, for delta T, 45 minus 26 into 4 milliwatt per degree Celsius. So let me know what is the value. Use your calculators.
Sir,
Yeah.
800 milliwatt minus, sir.
Sorry, I have taken 800, right? Okay. 800. Correct. 800 milliwatt.
724.
724. Is it milli?
Yes, sir, milliwatts.
Milliwatts. Now, going back to this equation, I can rewrite this equation as IF is equal to P2 by VF. So 724 milliwatts divided by 0.3. What is your answer?
241.33.
Sorry,
241.33.
241.33. So it's milli or ampere?
Milli, sir.
Milliampere. Okay. So this is the current which you are obtained. So this is the maximum forward current. Okay, these are the
2413.33, sir.
2400.
13.33.
Okay. Yeah, just check in. So what about others? What you are getting?
241.33.
Okay. Yeah, just check in the answer. 241.33 might be the answer. Just check in.
213.33 I get.
Okay. Okay, just look into the calculations properly. So these are the problems which you will be getting based upon the syllabus, whatever you have covered till now. So next, after this, we are having application that we will do in the next class.